every low swing speed golfer needs a low spin driver, but I also have seen plenty of low swing speed guys that by the numbers still hit the ball high with plenty of spin.
Sometimes they don't. Doesn't matter. They'll do their thing. What is up, everybody? Happy PGA Championship week. It's no putts given. How you living out there? People, everything good? It's rainy in Quail Hollow today. Course is going to be soft. Bombers paradise. Give Rory the trophy now. Should we? Should we just give it to Rory?
I mean, I feel like we should at least play 2 days.
Okay. All right, we'll play a couple days, see what happens. But before we get to PGA Championship picks or any of that kind of stuff, quick tour recap. Sepp Straka, signature event. Again, these signature events, very exclusionary. Some guys love them. Some guys don't love them. Eric Van Rooyen spoke out against him again, kind of even after his win. What's now, over a week ago now, and saying, it's Lucas Glover, same thing, far too exclusionary. But I'm not sure anybody cares about that as much as they care about what Sepp Straka was playing. And what's unique about I'm going to ask you this question is, so we know Sepp is a Strixon iron guy, Cleveland wedge guy, but he's Odyssey putter and Odyssey driver fairway woods. So
Callaway, same.
I'm sorry, yeah, Callaway. Yeah, I was stuck on the Tuttle, looking at the Tuttle. If there weren't sponsorships, because obviously Strixon, if he's being paid to play their gear, that stuff, they'll claim those things. But if he were just playing and you saw his bag, would you consider him more of a Strixon Cleveland golfer or more of a Callaway / Odyssey golfer?
I firmly believe that the driver gets more attention than anything else. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Dogs are having a day right now.
Get him.
Yeah. I think the driver leads the way. That's kind of the club everybody wants. You want to see ideally your head cover coming off and having it actually be your club underneath that head cover. So I think, yeah, if I'm looking at this, I'm like, I'm a little unsure, but I mean, certainly Callaway appears to be getting their money's worth, and who knows, right? Maybe there's a side deal there, but yeah.
I've always thought that it'd be really interesting if you either did it by number of clubs in the bag, which you could do, so you get 14. Now, if you counted each individual club as counting towards one brand or the other, obviously having the iron count, it's going to be much more helpful because that could be 6 or 7 of the 14 right there. Plus wedges, you could be at 10 very easily. But if you did it by category, like putter, wedges, irons, and then metalwood / hybrids, whatever, then this one would be more like 2-2, right? So,
yeah, I mean, this is a good deal for Callaway.
Yeah, particularly if they're not paying. It reminded me a little bit of when Ricky Fowler first switched over to TaylorMade when he was playing the TaylorMade ball, and Ricky was appearing an awful lot in TaylorMade commercials and advertisements. And if you didn't know that he was only playing the ball, which most people probably didn't, they probably assumed that Rory was that Ricky was all in on TaylorMade. But in fact, he was not. He was just playing the golf ball, and everything else was Cobra and Puma again. But TaylorMade got a lot of mileage out of that.
So much mileage out of a glove and a ball.
So good for them. Anyway,
so much.
Plenty of equipment stuff to talk about. The first one I want to dive into here is you were working on this little thing about lifetime warranties, which I thought was interesting. Like, you think about golf products in the golf space, most everything has some kind of warranty to it against defects, etc. But
1 to 2 years, pretty standard from what I've found. Yeah,
shoes, you get some waterproofing stuff. I mean, basically there to protect the consumer a little bit against things that are obviously or reasonably the manufacturer's fault. We don't run into lifetime warranty kind of stuff much in the golf industry. But you found a working list of several items, some that surprised me. So give me a couple highlights off that list.
Yeah, I think for for our audience in particular, the one that kind of leads the list, if you will, is going to be Tour Edge golf clubs. I'm not, I'm
Yeah,
going to be think it's well known. I'm not necessarily a fan of everything Tour Edge makes. In fact, I'm not a fan of a lot of what they make. But the exotics metalwoods in particular have performed well for us, and really, fair to say, a good chunk of the exotics line across the board, and you get a lifetime warranty on that, which that's a double-edged sword. Kind of like
yeah,
I guess I shouldn't buy a new one. um, so
yeah.
there's Tour Edge. Method Golf Company, which is
Method.
probably not a name many of I hadn't even heard it until I dug into the research. But basically, it's kind of I say an accessories company, but really they specialize in things to hold your phone, your rangefinder, and maybe a couple other things. So they have different things that'll either mount to your push cart, your riding cart, and even something solutions for those who carry. So I thought that was interesting. Um,
Okay.
SKB hard shell cases for those of you who like traveling with hard cases. I tend to use a soft sided one. I haven't had any issues, but I get
Put
it.
that list there. Yep.
Couple umbrellas, Gustbuster and Davik. There may be others. It's an umbrella. Maybe it's nice that you get the warranty of all the things on this list. It's probably the one that I care least about, but I'll mention it. Um,
If I need an umbrella, I shouldn't be playing golf.
yeah,
Is
there you go. One of our favorite brands, BOA. So if you buy golf shoes with a BOA fit system integrated, if that dial
hmm
breaks, your cables break for any reason, they'll
hmm
fix it or replace it or whatever it is they do.
Yeah.
A couple rangefinder brands,
This one
including
this
the one you've got a box back there. I am angered. I did not receive a faux wood box,
You did
but
not receive a
I'm not
full
bitter.
wood sample media kit box, but yeah, you'll hear the same probably come up more as rangefinder testing stuff came out. Pretty impressive brand. I didn't know a ton about them before kind of diving into them, but anytime a company puts a lifetime warranty on something that is,
Anything
yeah, that's the
technology,
thing to
anything
me.
with a
Yeah,
battery.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
at one point in time, like Precision Pro did kind of like a free battery for life thing. If you need a new battery, they'd send you
still do.
one,
I
or
think. Yeah.
whatever. But like anything, yeah, I mean, this is like optics and glass and technology, and it's like this kind of no questions asked. What you would hope a warranty would be like. To me, it's kind of like the Costco standard of like, hey, if I reasonably bought it here and I can show you what the product is, and they look at it and go, yep, there you go. Like it's really meant to kind of support that customer. I found that to be a remarkable thing. And and it's not just like they have like one rangefinder that you're never going to buy. It's like, hey, a lifetime warranty on a product you're never going to use. They have a full range of stuff that competes, feature wise against some of the very very big boys. So probably yeah, one worth checking out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if I was in the market for a rangefinder again, I talked about this before. Like I had the laser go on one, and it
hmm
was like I think it was a rangefinder I paid $300 for at the time,
hmm
and to get it fixed, get the laser replaced, whatever. By the time you're done shipping and everything else, it was like $150. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's what, might as well start fresh. And so yeah, it's a lifetime warranty on anything. It's not going to be reason alone, but if I'm looking at two products with similar features, similar capability, similar reliability, and one of them has a lifetime warranty,
yeah,
yeah,
easy decision, easy
anyway,
decision. You know, it's not an easy decision, Tony.
no.
Here's not an easy decision.
Okay.
Who's right? Callaway slash Odyssey or Lab in this whole,
Oh boy.
we
Oh
broached
boy.
this topic. We broached this
Yeah.
topic before. There was a massive reaction on social media. So we can, things kind of percolate and then things go back and forth. Again, we're kind of talking about the Odyssey putter that looks I'm not even going to say suspiciously like. It looks exactly like the DF3 from Lab. I,
Almost
we
like a
were
less
debating this.
polished version of a lab is really, I mean, that's,
Yeah,
we
it's
can talk about.
kind of blown up on our staff thread as well as we're all, debating things as we often do, going back and forth on who's right, who's wrong, who should be hung from the nearest tree, who should be, held responsible, etc. And as we kind of talked about it a little bit more, a couple different points maybe worth considering. Like what?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, first of all, it's gratuitous. It's as gratuitous of a copy as you've ever seen, and it really is looking like a. And again, like in terms of the cosmetic appeal, I'm going to
Right,
tell you that it looks like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
right,
It's not Odyssey's finest work in terms of the aesthetics, and maybe that's by design. And as I mentioned before, there's a part of me with some of what Odyssey has done as it relates to Lab is so gratuitous that you kind of wonder if maybe there's like it's gotten personal for some reason we don't know about, but it really is.
sure,
Well,
sure.
it almost seems like a middle finger more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, for me, and I think you made the point in the staff thread, and I think this was probably kind of how I see it as well. And it's this idea of like copying somebody else in golf in general is not particularly gratuitous, if only because in and of itself, because it happens all the time, especially in the putter space. And the question I've asked a number of people, ask again here, right? Who was the second company to make an answer? Who was the second company to make a spider shape? Who was the second company to put movable weights in a driver? Who was the second company to put an adjustable hosel in a driver?
Right,
And I ask because these are things that now everybody does. These are common in the industry. Nobody bats an eye.
right,
When a movable weight driver comes out next year, nobody's going to be screaming about how it was a copy of something else. And that is where we are today. When that first happened, you bet, right? It was derivative of something else. It was a borrowed idea,
right.
and somebody built on it. But your point was, cool, this stuff happens, but Odyssey is a leader in the puttering space,
Right.
and this does not feel like the behavior of a company that's out front.
Yeah, I get people that object to just the idea of copying somebody else's work, if you will. I mean, that's, you know, again, wherever you fall on the morality scale of whether that's okay or not, and certainly there's times that I would say it's absolutely immoral and unethical to do that. It's why people have to sign like NDAs and things. If somebody else has this idea, you take it, pilfer it, steal it, start your own company with somebody else's information you didn't think of. Obviously, that's kind of an egregious use of other people's information. Seeing a product that does really well in the market and mimicking that, maybe it's exact, maybe it's close, maybe it's inspired by, maybe there's, design cues taken from it, maybe it looks like it was copy and paste. Whatever the reason, that stuff happens all the time. It's why you get one successful idea. Somebody had the first SUV, and now, like I said, I don't know who the second company was to make something that looked like a Toyota 4Runner. I don't even know if the Toyota 4Runner was the first one.
Right.
So I don't know if they should get credit for the same thing. Again, car analogy. Audi's all-wheel drive quattro system. Let's say that was the first one. I don't know who directly tried to use their version of it, but now everybody and their mom has an all-wheel drive system. So I don't get that part as much. It's more for me the perception of I see Odyssey in general as a category leader. Number one played on tour, all these tours again, PJ Tour, then Scotty, back forth, but obviously Odyssey has the data to support.
Across worldwide tours.
Yes, but they have a behemoth status in the putter world, right? They are by whatever metric an industry leader in that space. And you look at designs that they created over time. Maybe you want to go to the two ball. We can talk about Dave Pells, and we can talk about some of that kind of stuff. The Fang, the number 7 kind of shape, where they fall with these other putter designs and things. Yeah, absolutely. So I see them as a
Right,
leader.
and nobody right now is screaming about the fact that Lab Putter has in their lineup what amounts to a lab take on a Fang shape, right? Like who's
Yeah,
really screaming about that. So it's sort of like I get it, but at the same time, it does feel like, if you want to call it punching down a little bit, if you're Odyssey
yeah.
versus,
I
aspiring to be the
expect,
leader.
yeah, I expect to see companies that lead be the ones that come to the industry with these ideas. They have the bigger R&D budgets. They have larger staff.
Right, we
They're
hear all
they're
the time, right? Callaway, we have the largest R&D budget in golf. That's a
right.
stat that comes up every time we go out
Yep.
to visit them, and
Yep.
like, well, didn't need it here. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's just a dynamic quality and thing is leading from the middle or kind of from the outside. Like I don't necessarily see Titleist, you know, looking to take design cues and things from other ball manufacturers. I expect Titleist to be the one to come to market with something that others then follow,
Well,
right?
but
So
case in point, they're logically, and who knows, they've been apprehensive to do it. I've been banging my head in the wall on this for years, but at
color go.
some point, right, Titleist will come to market, I hope, with whether you want to call it enhanced alignment above and beyond their enhanced alignment now, some sort of
Yeah,
stripe or alignment technology, some type of more compelling print on a golf ball, right? That
right,
that day will come, I hope. And
right.
so are we all going to be like, oh, they're copying, or just like, no, this is what the market demands at this point in time. And so
Yeah,
it
and
does, you do, there is a fine line between blatant copying and bad business, right? Like if the
sure.
market is demanding zero torque putters, and there was
Well,
some
that's
indication
yeah,
that shape works, and you go, well, we can't do that because whatever. I get it. There are market
yeah,
forces at play.
yeah, and it's not clean. It's not right, wrong. There's a lot of gray in there. I think because the Titleist example is a good one. If Titleist had leapt on it and done their version of Truvis or Pix a year later, then I think they would have gotten a lot of backlash for that. Say, hey, now you're just jumping on this visual aid trend to try to take some more market share or whatever. That was their idea, and now you're piggybacking. I think if they do something with this much space and time in between it, it's more like, hey, we studied it, we looked, here's what we decided and why. Yeah, there if it looks exactly like say a Truvis or a Pix or a fade pattern or a large, like we see on Tour Response or whatever. Yeah, of course people are going to draw those comparisons initially, but at the same time it's like, okay, it's another choice. It's out there. Great.
Right, and there is a fair question again about the business aspect of it. I don't know. Like we know that Lab, in terms of market share, has increased significantly in the last couple of years, right? The
Right.
number three brand right now in the marketplace.
Yeah,
And
dollar
so if you're
share.
if
Yeah.
you're Odyssey in that conversation, if you're Titleist in a similar market share conversation with the golf ball, and a
Mhm.
competitor is gaining ground, you do need to look at that and say, all right,
Mhm.
what are they doing that we're not?
Yeah.
Why are they making this up? And so yeah, part of it is quality on the golf ball side, right? Part of it is the quality of the competitive offerings
Yeah.
has increased. That's fair, but also these guys are just doing things that Titleist isn't with regard to printing things on golf balls and things like that. And likewise, Odyssey, I don't know for a fact where Lab's share has come from. I suspect a little bit of it at least has come from Odyssey, and at a minimum, there's certainly awareness that Lab is little by little gaining ground. It's not a threat
Sure.
to overtake Odyssey tomorrow, but
Right.
this idea you do have to look and go, all right, what are they doing that we're not? Well, they're doing the whole, what they call it, angle bound, zero torque, whatever, right? But they're doing
Mhm.
that, and we're not
Mhm.
doing that. They have these pretty huge shapes Some might say eyesores, but
Definitely,
they're having
yeah,
success
definitely
with it.
unique, definitely
We're not doing
identifiable.
that. Yeah. So
Right,
again, from a
right.
strictly competitive standpoint, it makes sense. As far as the optics go, it's still a bad look. And I think
Yeah,
if you look at the comments on the Odyssey posts announcing the putters, you're going to see that's pretty widespread. But
yeah,
I'd say that's also not uncommon. We see that all the time with releases where the initial response is just, yeah, that's terrible. It's the worst thing ever. This is nonsense. It's stupid. I hate
yep,
it. I'm never going to touch this. And then,
yep,
sales numbers come out and you're like, I guess somebody was full of shit.
yeah, yeah. I guess my final thought is what I expect from category leaders isn't at the end of the day to take existing technology and make it better or make your version of it. I expect something that somehow fundamentally changes the landscape of either that product category or does it in a way that nobody else has done. Um, that makes you go, damn, okay, they took this to a level or to a place that makes sense for such a large company with such a far reach and number of resources. So had they taken zero torque, that concept, and I don't know what they would have done with it, but come to me with your idea that blows my mind, done something with it that goes, oh my gosh, okay, that's a different take on that I can really see, as opposed to we're going to kind of leech off what you guys have done and kind of put our spin on it. So anyway, next topic. Let's go. Very quickly, our slower swing speed test results came out. We're not going to go through all of them. You can look at the stuff online if you want to. But the question for you is this: we've seen this a couple years now in our testing where lower spin driver heads, so ones that are just natively lower spin, tend to do really well for slower swing speed golfers. And for some people, that kind of flies in the face of conventional wisdom. Slower swing speed, you need spin. You need spin to get the ball in the air. Give me more spin. Get it in the air. Why would I want a low spin driver if I'm cruising at 85 miles an hour swing speed?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I actually wrote a story about this
That's
titled
why I'm asking you.
Unconventional Wisdom, Low Spin Drivers or for Low Swing Speed Players. And again, there's a lot to it, right? We talk about lower swing speed guys need help getting the ball in the air. They need help keeping it there.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a certain amount of sense, for sure. And so I'm not going to tell you that every low swing speed golfer needs a low spin driver, but I also have seen plenty of low swing speed guys that, by the numbers, still hit the ball high with plenty of spin. They just
Mm-hmm.
don't generate a ton of speed in doing it, right? There's a lot that
Right.
happens at impact that dictates each piece of that equation. So, as we mentioned, we've seen year over year that a lot of times low spin drivers do well for low swing speed players, and this is one of the places where we talked about this a few weeks ago on the other side. We talked about high swing speed guys and how we sometimes see higher MOI drivers rise to the top for them, and it's this
Mm-hmm.
thinking that it's almost like low spin is for high speed and high MOI is for low speed. Because
Right.
it's typically, because again, high MOI, you do tend to get higher launch, you tend to get more spin, but the MOI benefit, when you think about it practically, right? If I'm swinging 115 miles an hour, as I do in my dreams, um, versus a guy who swings 85 miles an hour, the the absolute yardage penalty for a miss in terms
Mm-hmm.
of hitting it somewhere other than the sweet spot on the face is costing me more yards at 115 than a guy who swings 85. So
Sure.
the
Yeah.
MOI benefit in terms of real world yard number is more. It's higher for a high
Yeah.
swing speed player. And so,
Yeah.
but again, it's a lot on how this stuff gets categorized, right? Low spin driver is just one way to describe it. I
Mm-hmm.
could I could describe it as more
Forward
aerodynamic,
CG or
forward
more for
CG, right? And
right.
that's ultimately whether we're talking about high MOI, low spin, whatever that designation is,
Yeah.
it's all a result or primarily a result of the center of gravity location.
Right.
And the way I
Right.
phrase it, so the way the physics work, we've got multiple articles about this, but generally speaking, is that center of gravity moves forward,
Mm-hmm.
as it does in low spin designs. You
Yep.
get less dynamic lofted impact, right? The club wants to more or less stay.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't actually do that, but on a relative basis, it wants to stay closer to the nominal loft.
Right.
Um, and because that center of gravity is closer to impact, you get a more efficient collision and more ball speed as a result. And so
Right.
if we reframe it, instead of saying low spin versus high spin, or as the conversation usually goes, low spin versus high MOI, if
Mm-hmm.
we just simply boil it down to the speed, the relative speed characteristics of those drivers, like, hey, guess
Yeah.
what? A back CG slash high MOI driver, inherently that ball speed is going to be a little slower.
Right.
And so if I say, hey, can a low swing speed player benefit from a faster driver?
You go, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and
Who couldn't?
like obviously,
Who
right?
couldn't?
And that's the thing too, as that center of gravity, we talk about that efficiency of collision. You can take more loft and still
Mm-hmm.
retain, the lion's share of that speed advantage. And we're
I was
seeing
just gonna say, yeah.
so we're seeing like, every LS driver on the market now comes in a 10.5.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are loft adjustable, which puts you at,
Yeah, you can get up to
12,
12.5. You can get to
12,
12,
12 and a half,
12.5.
depending
Yeah.
on it. And so you can still get the loft. You
Mm-hmm.
can use that loft to increase spin in
Right.
many cases, and you're going to get that speed benefit. And yeah, you're going to have lower MOI, but as I said, if you're swinging 85 miles an hour, unless you are legitimately a guy who hits it all over the face, not hey, I tend to miss fairly repeatedly out on the toe. I'm
Right.
legitimately unpredictable in my impact, which again,
Yep.
that's not a function of speed, right? That is a
No.
function of your ability. That has nothing or very little to do with your swing speed. There are 85-mile-an-hour guys who hit it all over the face,
Mm-hmm.
125-mile-an-hour guys who hit it all over the face. That's your
Mm-hmm.
high MOI guy primarily. If you're
Mm-hmm.
a consistent miss guy, that gives you the opportunity to line CG. That's
Yeah.
just like, hey, what's going to give me the most speed that I can control?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can maintain that speed, if you can still get the launch and spin you need out of a low spin design, and I would argue that for many golfers, between the loft adjustability and what you can get from the shaft in terms of increasing launch and as an extension of that spin, it can work. Low spin can work for a lot of low swing speed guys in much the same way. It's very much a similar continuation of the conversation where I say, guess what? Low swing speed guys can benefit from a higher compression golf ball.
Right. Right. Right.
So
And you
it's
think,
it's
no,
similar to that. And so again, I'm
I
not
don't
saying
swing
yes,
fast enough. Yeah.
if you swing 80, 85 miles an hour, go get the lowest spinning driver you can find. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it can work when properly dialed in fit. And there's very little reason to just take them out of the consideration set
Yeah.
entirely. And again, to reiterate, especially because you're actually benefiting less from the MOI.
Yeah. To me, the biggest learning here is we tend to do this, and there's a practical reason that we do this, but we tend to silo equipment, you know, by handicap or swing speed or whatever. And like I said, there's a matter of practicality because you have to sort and segment somehow to start making some decisions. But the takeaway for me is that's fine to do that, but also be open to other solutions. Don't assume that just because you're a low swing speed player, that only things that are marketed towards lower swing speed player is actually the right answer for you. In many cases, or a lot of cases, it might not be. It might be that just because, like I said, a low swing speed golfer might benefit from a lower spinning, um, driver head.
You know,
Slower guys,
I'll tell
yeah.
you a story. So
Tell me a story.
several years ago, my Tuesday night league partner, older gentleman, I maybe one of the shortest hitters I've ever seen. Right, reliable, kind of like
Mhm.
smash down on the ball, start it almost down and left, and watch it come kind of slowly climb up and creep right. Right,
Yep.
and
Yep.
kind of looked at the numbers, his spin numbers again, negative attack angle, pretty common,
Mhm.
um, and a slice, also
Yeah.
pretty common.
Yep.
And we were able to get him yards by fitting him into a lower lofted tour driver. He didn't get any less accurate. He still found about the same number of fairways, but he
You
picked up.
just cut the spin way down,
Yeah,
probably.
and so it's like,
Yeah.
what is going to give you distance? Well, a lot of golfers, not all golfers, a lot of
Right.
golfers, if you say I'm going to give you more speed and I'm going to pair that with less spin,
Mm-hmm.
unless you have major control problems,
Right.
that's
Right.
it's going to work for a lot of people.
Yeah. So interesting. So interesting. Quick show and tell before we talk about golf balls. I'm going to show you this, Tony. What's your first thought when you see that club?
I can barely see that. I'm
Good.
like, why? Why do I need a blade? That's my thought.
Okay. Good. Good. I'm
Unless
going to
that's
write about
3D
these.
printed with a ton of tungsten somewhere.
It is not. Makino, JDM brand. I'm going to be doing a little
Okay,
review
if you
on them
say
coming up
so.
shortly. Ooh. And this is, you could play this iron, Tony.
It's a little
Doesn't
bit of
look
that
like it.
Hogan blade on blade kind of design. I do like that.
Well, we're going to get there. It's super fun. All right. Last show and tell.
Is that a bag of hair? Or some
It's
kind
a
of weird?
bag. It's a bag of hair. No, this is
Okay.
the one thing I added to my golf bag this year because you get stuck outside or whatever. This is the Larry from Galvin Green. It is
Okay.
like the world's lightest weight. They bill it as a wind jacket, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's waterproof. They can't say it's waterproof because it doesn't technically meet some standard or whatever. But I wore it outside and had my daughter spray me with a garden hose.
Highly
It,
water resistant,
yeah, yeah, and it weighs nothing.
or like your
So
personality, repellent.
yes, exactly, precisely. With a bad attitude. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, just thought I'd show you that. All right, let's talk about a golf ball.
Okay.
Ballnamic metrics, choosing a golf ball.
Yeah.
Give me a couple things that again, we're into the season now. Most places we're in May, so it's getting nice. People are playing. I'm sure a lot of people haven't totally thought through what golf ball they play or why they play a certain golf ball. And there's a couple things that even if you do, you're
Yeah, I
probably
mean,
you're not
people are
thinking
gonna
about these
hate
things.
this.
I
People
know,
are
but
gonna hate this because you're taking something that's already complicated,
I know,
finding the right golf ball, and it's
I
like,
know,
hey,
I know.
here's two more ways to complicate it, but I think it's really interesting, and it's so I don't know how many of the people watching, listening, whatever, have tried Ping's Ballnamic tool, right? We've talked about it before, but
Mm-hmm.
basically an online ball fitting tool, brand agnostic, that allows
Mm-hmm.
you to put in parameters about your swing,
Mm-hmm.
the golf ball you're playing now, and also kind of outline what you're looking for in terms of performance difference. Like, how do you want the ball to fly? What is
Mm-hmm.
important to you? And
Mm-hmm.
within that system, there are two metrics that are, I would say, pretty non-standard in ball fitting conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So the first is flyer prevention. I think most people understand what a flyer is, right? You got that ball, it's in the rough, you think, all right, this is going to be my stock 7 iron. You
Yep.
hit it and it goes 15 yards longer
Yeah,
on
you get a
some
little
cases.
grass trapped in between the face and the ball, it knocks the spin off, and you just hit this knuckleball that goes forever. You hit your 7 iron instead of with 6,500 RPM spin, 3,500 RPM backspin, and this thing is just
Oh,
touch them all,
it flies
gone.
majestically far. You're like, ooh,
Yep. Ooh,
I really
nuked
flushed that one.
it. Yep.
And you know what? I flushed it so good. I'm gonna celebrate by dropping another one right where I stand because that one's beyond the white stakes. So
So how
yeah,
does a
so
ball? But how does a ball? Like, here's the thing. I want. How does a ball prevent flyers?
it really it's a measure of the golf ball primarily. Like some of it has to do with some spin properties, but primarily it's a reflection of the cover's ability to shed moisture, right? So you kind of keep that water from that is inherently going to find its way between your club face and your
Yep.
golf ball cover, whether
Yep.
that's by way of morning dew, whether it's thick grass, whatever. It's kind of a measurement of how well the cover of a golf ball resists the impact of moisture.
Hmm.
So we found from our testing early on, right, matte golf balls, absolutely horrible at this. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that there are any matte golf balls in the Ballnamic system because they tend to
They're
focus on
absorbent. They like hold
right.
on to
I
the
mean,
ball.
yeah. So matte golf balls are terrible. The Wilson Raw ball functioned as a matte ball, and
Right.
what you find is that some even within the urethane space, you can find pretty significant differences. So, on a full wedge shot, for example, Ping says, you may see 9,000 dry,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the balls, when wet, 4 to 6,000. So, in
Hmm.
some cases, 50% or nearly 50% drops in spin. And we saw this. And again, the extreme example, I feel like I've told this story a half a dozen times this week,
Yeah.
but during our last ball test, we were doing wet dry on full wedge shots.
Mm-hmm.
We got through the dry portion, and we're like, cool, and we're like moving through the wet wedge portion. And you can see it real time on the launch
Sure.
monitor, right? You see launch angles creep up, spin rates drop, and we're hitting indoors kind of into a tarp. And we
Sure.
dropped not to pick on Callaway some more, but dropped a Callaway Super Soft on the tee and gave it
Yep.
the spritz treatment. And the first swing, the launch and spin characteristics changed so much that it flew over kind of the rail system that the tarp was on and smashed
Right.
into the opening of the right where the overhead door, right at the top of it.
Yeah.
We're like, all right, we gotta make some adjustments. So I mean, that's the clear evidence. But yeah, like even
Mm-hmm.
on urethane, you see big differences. And so we'll have more articles about this, but talking to Marty over at Ping about his propensity to occasionally play 5 different golf balls over the course
In
of
the
a round.
same round. Yeah.
He really does. Like he's like, yeah, if we got some dew on the fairway, but the greens are firm, I'll play a Bridgestone Torby
Mm-hmm.
X because like that's a situation where it can handle
Mm-hmm.
those conditions. It sheds moisture really well, so it's going to stop on that firmer green. So it's like it's another layer of thinking.
Is there any way for like me to check? Let's say you play a ball. Let's say, oh, okay, I play the TP5, I play Pro V1, I play Chrome Tour, whatever, and I just want to check and see, hey, how good is that ball on flyer prevention? You mentioned this metric now. I'm kind of interested. Does
Yeah, I
my
mean, this
ball
is
is my ball reasonably
if you have access to a launch monitor. I mean, I'm not going to tell you to do this inside of Dick's Sporting Goods, but I'm also not saying you couldn't.
don't do it?
But yeah, like like you will, right? Go hit a half a dozen shots,
Mhm.
dry, get those spin numbers, that launch and spin numbers, and then kind
Yeah.
of, give the ball a spritz, hit it, see what happens, right? Make sure you're drying the club face, repeat the process, and you'll see big changes
Do you
depending on the
think it
golf
kind of
ball.
mirrors at all kind of what I mean, if we look at our testing from the like wet wedge test we did, obviously we didn't do that through, every club in the bag, through 7-iron, 6-iron, 5-iron, so on and so forth. But that's a decent place to start as well, because you do start to see
You
those
will see
really
it
you'll see
You'll see
big
it most
differences.
on full and partial wedge shots. So
Right.
that's where I would.
Yeah.
And then the
What's the
second
other one?
metric,
Yeah, what's the
yeah, this
second
one.
metric?
So it's a win score, right? And it's how well. So the charts they use and the way they frame it is kind of how much will your golf ball lose directly into the wind. And so again, like one of the things Marty talked about is this idea that better players in particular should have an into the wind ball. And so, kind of the wind performance is dictated by the aerodynamic properties, so the dimple
Yeah.
pattern, spin rate, the initial launch angle of the golf ball, right? There's a lot that goes into it, and Marty was transparent. He's like, we don't fully understand every last contributing factor, but
Hmm.
they definitely find a difference. And so, one of the things that he hammered home, if you look at kind of how it's described in Ballnamic, the conversation is really about into the wind.
Right.
And what how Marty explained it is like there's into the wind, but these balls will also hold up better in a crosswind. So in any kind of wind,
Hmm.
either at you or side to side, these balls are typically going to hold their line better, curve less, and so as a
Hmm.
result, you're going to get in those conditions tighter dispersion relative to some other golf balls.
Okay.
And so it's like, hey, would you like a ball that flies straighter in a crosswind?
Sure.
Especially if I can play multiple balls during the course of a round, which is the
Right.
rule, right? Unless the local
Yeah,
rule
unless it's
says you
yeah,
can't, you
right.
can.
Right.
And again, it complicates things, but something again, the one that comes up a lot in this scenario is the Titleist AVX. We
Hmm.
have a low flying, low spinning golf ball, and it's kind of unique, because with a lot of when we talk about some of the stuff that most of the stuff that tends to be lower spinning, it's paired with higher flight.
Right.
AVX
Right.
kind of gives you kind of the low
It's
low
low,
of both.
low.
And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the ball that Marty talks about into the wind. But again, the beauty of it is you can go into Ballnamic, put in your parameters, and based on what you do, what you want to see from a ball, and start with your baseline. Tell the win score is super important to me. Win performance, super duper important to me. Spit out a
Yep.
recommendation for me based on those parameters,
Yeah.
coupled with, of course, Ping's aerodynamic model. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating because, again, we talk all the time like flight, spin, and a little bit of feel. That's
Mm-hmm.
what you're looking for. A golf ball distance is nice, but really, so
Mm-hmm.
this kind of extends and go, yeah, there's some other things that if you're really serious about maximizing your performance via the golf ball, here's some other things you should consider.
Yeah, if you really want to dig into it, even just I think as an experiment to
Do not eat shoes. Oh boy.
consider
Oh
consider
boy.
what just kind of yeah, consider what you might want to do differently if you needed to, or even just kind of see, like I said, where your current ball ranks and understand, hey, is this, I play the TP5X, I play Bridgestone, I play Titleist, I play, whatever ball. Is this ball not only good for me, but if they noticed anything, in that performance testing, and it goes back to like, there isn't necessarily a perfect ball for every golfer, but there is probably a ball that's better for you. And it's pretty unlikely that that ball that's better for you is only going to be at one company. Like you may have characteristics that make you look at different areas because that's the reality. So as Ping learns more, we're gonna continue to kind of dive into that. So anyway, all right. Last question. We'll move on. Who wins PJ Championship this week? Everybody wants Rory to win. He's betting
I
favorite. All
mean,
these kind of
right,
things.
it's Jordan Spieth. If he somehow finds a way, that's the career Grand Slam for him, which would
It
be
is.
the
It is.
tightest, by far the tightest gap between two golfers completing a career Grand Slam. So that's kind of the feel good story. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but like if you don't start the discussion of who's going to win any tournament around Scotty,
Yep.
yeah, so
So Scotty or Rory, who finishes higher?
Scotty.
Scotty. All right.
Yeah.
I'll take Rory, and we'll see what happens.
All right.
Until next time, we out. See what happens.